Hello, lovely humans. It is Tuesday of week 2 here in the tabletop role playing class. I'm so glad you're here. Today, I'm going to recap what we did in class today, look ahead to Thursday. Oh, and mute my double check kind of tab if it wasn't some kind of hilarious error, it wouldn't be live, right? So I'm also going to answer questions that have shown up on Blue Sky and in the chat about how the class is going so far and students' stars and wishes. So, first, what is Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast? If you're not familiar, it is a fairly recent game. The physical copies have not yet hit backers' hot little hands, although the one more multiverse version of the virtual tabletop, as well as the full PDF, are available. This is the first time that I've included Yazeba's in the TTRPG class, but I've played it in many different contexts over the last little while. I've played it with hardcore gamers and total newbies and everyone in between, which was great experience for this class, which literally had a table of all newbies, a table of folks with tabletop experience, and a table that was an interesting blend. What I've noticed with Yazebas, which is a storytelling game that very intensely as other belonging um, beyond belonging, games do is there are very few hard, like, and fast rules. It is about the spirit of play. And that can be really hard for both newbies who are looking for guidance, as well as folks who are used to much crunchier tactical systems. And so after we played, we discussed that. And in fact, one of the seeds that I planted was a possible unessay project where students thought through what would a quick start for the classroom look like, given that I didn't ask them to read in preparation. I did print out some introductions and some parts of the early part of the book that give guidelines to what we might think of as safety tools, as told in the voice of Hey Kid, as well as some of the kind of practical matters. I kept the character choice to just the core members of residents of the bed and breakfast, no kind of expansion of the other guests that are available at the start of the game. And I narrowed it down to four of the chapters, two of which I was familiar with through my own play, and two that I was familiar with from other spaces. That meant that I needed to have handy index cards, which are always useful for this class, and I have them on me in my go bag at any given time. A deck of cards, which I got from my friendly game group. The number of different decks of cards my friends have was a revelation from this weekend's group chat. And finally, you have to have counters or tokens for a lot of the chapters of Yazebas. And my friend had said to me, "Oh, well, I have a whole bag of Monopoly thimbles." And I said, I'm not going to ask any questions, but if you'd like to bring them over, that would be really great. And of course, I put them in the wrong bag. But very easy substitute, easily found in a vending machine, or in my case, the satellite version of our bookstore, was frankly jelly beans. Totally worked and got that mid afternoon kind of sugar rush going. Easy peasy, not a problem. So a lot of printable material, but not an onerous amount. I wish I'd had more paper clips to kind of keep things wrangled. And I kept myself out of the fray for a little while, although I came in and did some kind of very small kind of check-ins as we kept moving. I kept the soundtrack going in a way that allowed the tables to mostly focus on each other and not the kind of din that was coming in from other tables. That said, there were some moments of intervention. It is important, even though I read out the introduction, I read out Hey Kids advice about safety tools that also emphasizes that rules are there to be broken if they're not working. I did have to intervene with at least one table to say, it's okay for you to just throw out that last rule to be done, if that's where the fun is. So that's really hard for experienced gamers to get their heads around. And I think that's pedagogically really useful at this point in this semester. We are introducing and onboarding total newbies in gentle ways, but we're also trying to break free the habits that might have been inculcated by devotion to a particular system or method of play. Both of those are things that we want to kind of shake out as we take a look at a wide variety of games. So, stars and wishes, students asked for more structure and more guidance. I turned around and said, hey, let's think about what that might be, and maybe somebody will take up my call to action. But there was a lot of enthusiasm and appreciation in terms of stars for their classmates and what they were able to do and the trusting space they're already creating. And they had some fun. I was impressed that our run of Yazebas gave us 15 minutes to talk at the end, as well as about 10 to 15 minutes to do some housekeeping at the beginning of a 75-minute class. So, definitely recommending Yazeba's, and we'll use it again and recommend it to other folks who want to think about story games in their classroom, even if they're not explicitly doing a tabletop game. I'll be thinking some more about which chapters work best and indeed whether I want to include more scaffolding or possibly just assign a little bit of the game book as the kind of opening reading for the class that day. So that even though there's no rules or the rules are made to be broken and there's, kind of minimal mechanics, students can feel a little bit more prepared for that. Although shock and awe is also useful. Um, so that's how class went today. On Thursday, what we're going to be doing is we're going to um, flip and get a quick introduction to actual play. Actual play is, of course, the performance of role playing games, and Yazebas has an award winning podcast version of 4 episodes, each of which is no more than an hour and 15 minutes. If we were a few weeks from now and I was feeling particularly self indulgent, I could also see how the upcoming My First Dungeon series, limited series, shakes out. Disclosure, I play Amelie in that series. But, for self indulgent birthday surprises, I think it's just enough to have them get dipping into actual play. And as with the previous versions of this class, students have a wide variety of levels of exposure. People for whom actual play is totally new, people who have heard of actual play, as well as the person who was sitting right in the front of the room with their Critical Role shirt on, which is very lovely and, of course, required me to make a "It's not Thursday yet" joke, which of course required me to make a "It's not Thursday yet" joke, which another student said, I've been waiting for you to say that. So I instructed them in terms of actual play to select the one that seemed the most interesting to them. It might be the same chapter that they just played. It might be something else. They might pick the birthday episode because it is my birthday on Thursday when we do course discussion. And that they don't have to sit quietly in a corner to listen. Actual plays are designed to be entertainment that happens while you're doing other things, be it a load of laundry or cooking dinner or driving or running. as I told them, I discouraged them from doing kind of mentally taxing stuff while they're listening, or trying to fall asleep. Not because falling asleep is necessarily a bad thing, but I have found that it's a little bit of a hazard to uh, have some weird dreams if you're listening to an actual play and you fall asleep. Could just be me, but I am the voice of experience in the room to an actual play and you fall asleep. Could just be me, but I am the voice of experience in the room. And so I'm asking them to bring on Thursday that particular embodied experience with them as we talk about what actual play is, how the experience is similar and different from the actual play experience that they had, and to talk a little bit about what they noticed about the features of the form. Some of them may be attracted to it, some of them may not. And that's going to determine the pathway that they go forward with contracted labor. Some of them may want to do a deep dive into actual play as a form as part of the labor of class. Others may decide that that's not a route that they want to take. And some may be on the bubble, in which case I'm going to recommend that they definitely listen to Worlds Beyond Number, because one of our guests for this semester is Taylor Moore. And all of them are going to be asked to dip into that podcast at some point in the foreseeable future. So that's the shape of this week. And so recap done for students who have missed class. And there's, basically some time to answer some interesting questions, as it were. And there have been a few on the site currently known as Twitter. I reject all notions that it has changed names. It's the only such name change that I will not kind of honor in that kind of way. But so I've got some questions about student anxieties, and so far there haven't been a whole lot. Students kind of are still wary as they're getting adjusted, but we haven't seen ongoing friction in that kind of way, which is really nice. So far, people are, getting used to, the ride and that kind of jumping into. Students are some of the most eager beavers are already really excited about the master list of potential adoptable TTRPGs. Over the weekend, my homework was to make that master list, which was based on recommendations that I have, my own personal collection, which is on our kind of locked space for them to have access to, as well as recommendations from my colleague Evan Torner, who tends to think historically, and recommendations that are in Gabe Hicks's A Kid's Guide to Tabletop Role-Playing Games, where he has a beautiful flowchart that walks you through, kind of what's your vibe, what kind of story you're trying to tell. And then, thanks to social media is not yet dead, thanks to Twitter and Blue Sky, I had over 100 more recommendations to sift through. In some cases, I have already purchased or already owned. The TTRPG is still available in some way for me to acquire, and basically cut and paste the URLs. So students could go get some information and see if that was something they were vibing with. And if they choose to adopt it, I will use my own personal funds to add that to my library as well as the class's library. And this is in full transparency. This is the way that I am often compensated for writing for the public, and in some cases for performance and things like that. It all goes into a little slush fund where I push it back into the community in these kinds of ways, through both coffee donations as well as itch.io purchases and other purchases of materials. So that's kind of how I have that work. So far, we have 2 students who are each really excited about Call of Cthulhu by Chaosy, which interestingly I didn't include on the list. it's fine with me, and it's not a problem. I hadn't added it to the list. What's good about there being at least two students who are excited about Call of Cthulhu is that because part of the work is running the game for either trusted friends outside of the class or classmates within the class or some combination, you also need to have some folks who are excited to play this game. So that's working out really nicely. Also have a student who is really excited about Vampire, another student who is super excited about Frankenstein's 1,000-year-old vampire, and a student is very excited about what we know of Candela Obscura. In Candela's case, first of all, it's not completely out yet, and we don't have a publication date. The Quick Start Guide is pretty short, and we're taking a look at it for a class. So I want to honor this student's excitement, but also kind of give them something beefier to sink their teeth into, something they know more fully. So I encourage the student to go to the final page of the Quick Start Guide and look at the games that the Candela designers, Spencer and Rowan, and the rest of the team have identified as inspiration points. And say, hey, why don't you adopt that and bring in Candela? You can play either one. You can play them kind of as a comparison, see, how the nuance changes, transform meaning. I think that's a really cool assignment, and I'm really excited to see how that plays out, because that's how that's going to go. Still, more students are going to need some time, and in fact, I have it set up so that next Tuesday I will bring basically as many physical books as I can carry from my bookshelves. And students will have hopefully identified their top four if they can't, if they're having a decision to give us some keywords that we can collectively to help matchmake and so that everybody has a kind of dance partner by the time kind of get through the first half of the class. And the second half of class that day, as I first talk about in the weeks to come, will be our first close examination. But that's and then we will carry those adoptions forward into asking more questions about these games and looking at them from all different kinds of angles, both in terms of the text themselves, the genealogy and the people around it, games inspired this game or are descended from this game, who made them and what else have they made, what communities of practice are involved, something that emerged from, say, Forge, but also things like awards. Did your game win award came out the year after? And if it didn't, what did? And what might that suggest? Does that suggest anything? Do awards mean anything? Who knows? And also thinking about your game MD, according to who? You think? Do you agree? Which definition are you gonna go with? That's very much on my register, and so that is absolutely in play. So that's basically what students are working this moment in time and thinking about and kind of getting ready to dive into. And that's really it's going really well in that respect. We have seen some attrition. This is the nature of the beast. Today is the last day for students to draw and have a financial penalty to add to class. Students can withdraw later in the semester, and there's a kind of increasing amount of burdens into this. But this is really and this is why we're not yet intensive reading, analysis, things do because we still don't know tired of how the class is going to land until Thursday. Today is basically a drop day at the end of the day.
So I've already seen a little bit of fall off to be expected. This is a weird class. What I try to do on the first day and in the communications prior to the first day is say, okay, this is weird, what you're in, what you want out of this semester, and that's totally cool. We're just all good page about what's expected in that way. So I've also got a question from John Bolte. Hey, very excited for next big panel that we are doing. In terms of prerequisites, there are no prerequisites for this class aside from kind of English courses. There are no prerequisites for this class aside from kind of English